Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be creating a Christmas ornament on a stand. For my project today, I'm going to be using this plastic ornament. It is 12 centimeters in diameter and I got it from Kmart Australia. I am going to be gluing the two sides together using my Gorilla Super Glue Gel. I'm going to add some to that inner rim, a generous amount to make sure that it's secure, and then I'm going to press the two sides together. I'm then going to be using a wet wipe to wipe off any excess glue. You can probably find similar ornaments on Amazon or eBay. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer in white. I'm going to be applying one coat, letting that dry for about half an hour. Then I'm going to apply a second coat. This is going to ensure that my paint sticks and stays there. When my second coat was dry, I took out Redesign's Ornate Legacy Mould. I'm dusting the oval frame design with cornstarch, and then I'm working my Das air dry clay into that design. I'm pushing the excess clay out, and then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to flex the mold, flip it over, and carefully remove my casting. Clay is definitely the best option for today's project because I need it to mold to a round surface. So once I have my casting ready, I'm going to sit it on the ornament there. And then I'm going to be using Redesign's Santa's Holiday Cheer mold, and I'm going to be dusting that center Santa with cornstarch, and just like with the previous mold, I'm working my clay in and pushing the excess out. I'm going to be layering the Santa over the top of the frame casting, so I'm going to add glue to the frame casting first. I'm using Sealy's Quickset wood glue on the back, spreading it out, making sure that I've got good coverage. I'm then going to position it on the ornament, and then I'm going to layer the Santa casting over the top in the center. I then took out Redesign's Angelic Floral Noel mold. I'm going to dust this lovely bell design on the right there. I'm going to add my Das air dry clay to that one. However, when I laid it where I wanted it to go, the bell was obscuring some of the frame. So I decided I would actually cut that off and leave that particular part out. I then took out the Regal Trimmings mold, and I'm dusting one of those designs with cornstarch and again just working my clay in. So I'm going to be casting two of these, and I'm going to be having them go around the outside of the ornament. So I'm going to add my wood glue to the back of that, and then I'm going to position that around the outside of the ornament. I'll then attach the other one to the other side as well. I'm then going to be using my palette knife to cut off the excess from the top. And then I took out this little stand here. I will link below where I got it from. And I want this ornament to sit on the stand. So I'm pressing it up against the bottom to make indentations in those castings. And then I'm going to use my palette knife to cut off the pieces that I don't need. I'm then going to attach the stand using my Gorilla Super Glue Gel. So I'm going to apply a generous amount to the upper section of the stand, and then I'm going to apply pressure until it is stuck there. For the other side of the ornament, I'm going to be using the Christmas Village mold by Redesign. I am going to be casting one of the houses from that mold. I thought this one was the perfect size and shape for the other side. And I'm also going to be casting two of each of the trees that I have just added cornstarch to. And I'm also casting those two sweet little lamp poles there that also have the wreaths in them. So it was really easy to use my clay in these pieces. I'm loving the scale of these as well. They really are perfect for smaller decor projects. For the lamp posts, I rolled my clay into sort of like a sausage shape, and then I pushed it into my mold there, and then I just carefully pulled that design out. I want the house to look like it's nestled in amongst some festive greenery, so I am dusting the holly designs from the Cardinal Cheer mold by Redesign, and then I'm going to be casting one of each of these. This is definitely a very versatile piece. I've used these a lot in my Christmas craft projects. I'm then going to add my wood glue to the back of each of those castings, and I'm going to position it towards the bottom of the other side of the ornament. As I said, I want the house nestled on top of these. So I'm then going to add the house and adjust the holly castings to suit the house and the trees that I'm going to start adding either side of the house. So I definitely had to work quickly here to make sure that glue hadn't dried so I could rearrange things. I've also added the lamp pole on the right hand side. I did have to remove some of the bottom of it so that it would sit at the height that I wanted. And then I will be repeating the same process on the other side of the ornament, just mirroring what I have on the right hand side. So it looks like a balanced design. Once I had that sorted, I took out the Blooming Banners mold. I'm going to be doing a partial casting because I do want to create a banner. And so I'm just adding clay to part of that design there, and then I'm going to pull that out, and then I'm going to use my palette knife to cut off any pieces that I don't need. I'm going to sit that to the side for the moment, and then I did take out the Santa's Holiday Cheer mold again because I am going to cast this sweet design here that has the bow and the bells. I'm going to be adding that up the top. And then I took out my Amazon stamp set, and I'm going to be pressing the letters into my still wet clay of that banner that we created to spell out the words Merry Christmas. It was not perfect. The letters were a little bit uneven, but I did my best and I like how it turned out. That's going to go up the top. I'm going to glue that in place and then layer that other casting over the top. And then I took out the Timeless Ties mold by Redesign. I'm going to be casting one of those bow designs and adding glue to the back of that. That's going to be actually flipped upside down to sit just underneath the house. I really liked how this looked. I felt like it finished off that section. I wanted to add something else around the outside of Santa, so I took out IOD's Santa's Sleigh mold, and I'm going to be casting 3 of the smaller presents from that mold and 2 of each of those presents because I'm going to be repeating, or rather mirroring, whatever I have on one side with the other side of Santa. So I'm going to glue them in place. I've sort of got them facing different directions. I thought that was a little fun detail. So sort of like they're a border around him. I thought the presents went perfectly with Santa, and it finished off that side. Underneath Santa, I decided to add a slightly bigger present. I'm going to cast it, but then I am going to cut some of it off to make it a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to glue it underneath Santa, just below his feet. As a final touch for the other side, I also took out the Santa's Holiday Cheer mold again, and I'm going to cast 2 of these little greenery pieces, and I'm going to be gluing them underneath the little house scene that we have there. I just wanted a little bit more greenery coming down underneath. I let that dry overnight, and then I took out Buttercream chalk paint by Paint Couture. I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this over the top of the entire ornament. As I said, I did allow my castings to dry overnight, so they've had lots of time to dry. So I'm not worried about damaging those details. I'm going to be painting front and back, and also the stand underneath as well. When that was dry, I took out Van Dyke Brown and Taking Glaze. I'm going to be applying this over the top of the whole ornament. I'm also using a water mister to help move that glaze and dilute it a little bit. I'm then going to use a wet wipe to pull it back from the high points. I really like to use glaze and this technique to create definition. So that is why I will often add that before adding any other sort of color. This is obviously an optional step, but as I'm going to be layering colors over the top, I don't feel that it really makes the project look grungy. As I said, I just really think that it gives definition to all of those beautiful castings. Once the glaze was dry, it was time to start adding color. I took out Cardinal Red Luxe Metallic, and I'm starting with Santa. I'm using a smaller artist brush to apply that beautiful metallic red over the top of Santa's hat, his suit. I am trying my best to avoid the areas where I know I'm going to be using lighter colors, like his beard, his coat, sleeve ends where we know that he would probably have the white fur. I am also going to add it to his pant legs as well. Next, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic. I'm using this over the top of the beautiful ornate frame that we have just behind Santa. I am going to do 2 coats of this. I really love this color, but again, throughout this video, if I am using colors that don't necessarily suit your Christmas color scheme, remember you can customize this and substitute to make it suit your style better. If I inspire you to try any of the Redesign with Prima or Paint Couture products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate links. You will find them in the description below. When that was dry, I took out Amazon Luxe Metallic. I'm using that on the greenery on the top section where we have the bells, but I'm also going to be adding the green to the presents on the left and the right hand side, alternating, making sure that I'm going down the sides of the molds as well. Once I finished adding it to the ornaments on the other side, I also added it to the greenery on the present down the bottom. For the other presents, I am using Cardinal Red again, and I did end up doing 2 coats of the Cardinal Red and the Amazon Luxe Metallic on each of these sections to get the coverage that I wanted. While I had that Cardinal Red out, I moved on to adding some really tiny little berries to the top section, just trying to dab small little dots to represent those berries up the top there, and also on the present details down the bottom underneath Santa's feet. For Santa's boots and belt, I'm using Black Pearl Luxe Metallic, again using a small artist brush, trying my best to be as neat as I can be, but I can use a wet wipe to pull back any mistakes. Once I finished with his shoes, I went in and started adding the Black Pearl to his belt. I just went straight over the top of the buckle because I knew I'd be able to layer in the color I was going to use over the top without any issue. When that was dry, I took out Pearl Crystal Paste, and I'm going to be using this wherever we have the white for Santa, so his hat, his beard, of course, as well. This is just going to give it a lovely shimmer and shine. Now, obviously, this is optional. I've used a lot of metallics here, and of course, the crystal paste. You can definitely use your more traditional acrylic paints instead. You do not have to use metallics or crystal paste. I just really love to use these for my Christmas crafts. When that was dry, I took out Antique Gold Luxe Metallic. I'm going to be using that to create Santa's belt buckle. Just trying to be as neat as I can be. And then I'm also using that on the bows on each of the presents and the ribbon that's going down the center. And I'm of course repeating the same process for each of those presents. I'm also using the same gold on the bow up the top above Santa. And then I'm going to add some details to Santa's bag. I'm using the Amazon Luxe Metallic on the green on his bag, the antique gold on the bow, and also the handles as well. So just trying to define them a bit better. I'm adding some gold details to the bag on the right hand side, the strap. I'm also going to go around the outline of that bag as well, just to trying to make it look a little bit different from the one that we have on the right hand side. And then I took out Oyster Pearl Luxe Metallic. I'm adding that over the white sections on the presents. Now the antique gold is completely dry, and I'm just adding it to the top sections there, and then also to the ribbon up the top near Santa's head, and also on his bag that we just painted on the left and right. And then when that was dry, I used Cardinal Red on the end of a paintbrush to add a couple of little red dots on his bag. Next, I used Bronze Luxe Metallic on the bells up the top there. And I am then going to be using the Amazon Luxe Metallic again so that I can move on to the other side, starting with the holly up the top. This is the same mold that we have on the opposite side of the ornament, and I'm going to be keeping a pretty similar color scheme here too. I'm using the same Amazon over the top of the trees that we have either side of the house scene. I am allowing it to go down into the lower points as well. I will be creating definition on those with a different color. And whatever I have on the left side, I will repeat on the right hand side of the house. And then I am also adding the Amazon over the top of the Cardinal Cheer holly castings that we added underneath. Now I don't mind if I go over the top of the berries that are there, because I will layer the red over the top of those and it won't be noticeable later. I'm also adding it to the greenery that's underneath the house as well. So we're just adding a lot of green and we will define all of those sections a bit later. I'm adding a little bit of that Amazon to the wreaths that we have on each of the lampposts as well. And then when that was dry, I started adding the Cardinal Red Luxe Metallic to each of the berries. So as you can see, I'm able to easily layer that over the top of the green. In some areas, I can go back over the top of that with another coat. And then once I have organized all of the berries, I also went in and carefully added some little bows over the top of the wreaths on the lampposts. While I have that cardinal red out, I am also going to add a couple of little dots up the top to make it look like berries. Next, I took out Black Pearl Luxe Metallic. I'm using this to define the lamp posts going over the top of that. I am going to leave a section blank so that I can add a different color to where the light would go. Of course, my paint is dry, the green is dry as I'm layering the black over the top of this. And then I moved on to the house. I'm going to use that same black pearl to define the windows. I'm going to go around the outside of each of those just so that they don't fade too much into the background. I'm adding it to the windows underneath as well, and also the door frame and a couple of the outside points of the house. And also a little bit on the chimney. Up the top, I'm adding bronze to the bow that we have there. And then while I have that out, I'm going to use that over the top of the windows to make it look like we've got some lovely warm light coming through the house. And then I'm also going to be using that same bronze on the bow that we have underneath the house as well. And then I took out Antique Gold Luxe Metallic. I am using that on the bells that we have up the top and also over the top of the lamp post to make it look like we've got some light coming through. I'm adding a little bit more Van Dyke Brown Antiquing Glaze to the steps and also the outside of the house, and just really going in, trying to darken it up just a little bit, not too much, but I do want it to have a bit of contrast with the roof in the background. And then I added Cardinal Red to the front door. When that was dry, I took out Oyster Pearl Luxe Metallic paint. I'm adding that to the ribbon up the top, and then I'm also adding it to the roof of the house and anywhere that it looks like we have some snow. I want that to be quite white. I want it to stand out quite a lot. I'm also adding it to each of the little windowsills, and then I'm going in and adding it to parts of the trees so it looks like they have lots of snow that's just fallen. I am just picking certain areas to do that. And then I'm offloading some of that Oyster Pearl and doing almost a dry brushing effect on the greenery below. I wanted to have more of a frosted look. So I'm going over the top of the leaves, the berries, also the gold. And then I'm using pearl crystal paste. Now my Oyster Pearl is dry. I'm applying this over the top of it. This is going to give it even more shine. It does have sort of little glitter particles in it. I'm also adding it to parts of the house as well, just really trying to create an overall frosted look. For Santa's eyes, I am using pitch black chalk paint. I've dipped the end of my paintbrush in it. I'm just going to gently dab it over the top of where Santa's eyes are, and then I'll use a wet wipe to wipe back anything that I'm not happy with. Next, I took out Crackle Step 1. I'm going to be applying it in all of the blank spaces that we have. I want to give this piece a little bit more character. You could definitely leave it here before the crackle, but I want to add this. So I'm going to add Step 1. I'm going to use my hairdryer to dry it off. When it feels sticky and tacky to the touch, I'm going to add Crackle Step 2, and I'm applying it in the same places on each side of the ornament that I have Crackle Step 1 down. I also sped up the drying process for the Step 2 as well. It's just something I like to do. And then I am going to move on to a different part of the ornament to let that set further. I'm going to be using Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm adding that to the trim that we have down the center of the ornament. I'm also going down the sides as well. Again, just trying my best to be as neat as possible. I'm also adding it to the little stand underneath. I ended up doing 2 coats specifically on the stand. I'm going to be painting the inside sections of the stand as well, obviously, because you can see those. And this is a piece I would envision probably sitting on a dining table, so all sides matter. I'm going to paint that top hanging attachment, and then I moved on to adding the bronze to the outside sections of the banner. And then I'm also going to go around the bottom section as well, and then I'm also adding it over the top of our letter impression. So I'm adding it and then I'm wiping it away with a wet wipe, so we've got more of a bronze look to those letters. Now, it's not going to be perfect. You could use decoupage or stenciling if you wanted instead. I took out Royal Gold Pigments by Paint Couture. I'm actually going to be working this into the little cracks that we created with the crackle medium. So I'm applying it, really working it into those cracks, and then pulling it back with a paper towel and a wet wipe. I'm adding it to all of the areas that we have the crackle on the center side, and then I'm pulling it back. So this is a very subtle look. For the other side of the ornament, I wanted to use this silver lace pigment, but when I started applying it, it was much too light. You could barely see the cracks. So I ended up wiping that back and switching back to that royal gold. So I'm using that just straight over the top so it will tie in with the other side. But I did really love the shimmer that the silver lace created. So once I had this side sorted and I'd pulled back the excess and I had it looking the way that I wanted with the royal gold, I then decided that I would go back in and layer that silver lace over the top so I could still see the royal gold in the cracks below, but the silver was sitting a bit further on top. It was accumulating around the edges, and I also added it to the center side as well to tie the 2 parts together. When that was dry, I took out Oyster Pearl Luxe Metallic again, and I'm going to be doing some dry brushing over the top of pretty much all of the raised details. So this is a very subtle look. It's going to soften the colors. It's going to also give us a bit more definition for those high points as well. I'm going over the top of the presents, over the top of Santa. I'm being a little bit lighter when I go over the top of the bronze sections. And I'm also going over the top of the border around the outside and a little bit over the top of the other side. And when that was dry, I used my Gloss Clear Coat Spray Sealer to seal everything. Next, I took out this ribbon that I got from Spotlight Australia. I loved the color and the pattern. I'm going to loop it and create 2 bows and then cut off the excess. I'm then going to sort of bunch it and pull it together in the center to create a bow shape. And then I'm going to use some craft wire to hold that center section. I'm going to wind that around there, and then I am going to hot glue on another smaller piece of that ribbon around the center. I'm going to glue the ends of the ribbon tails, or rather the sides, together on each side. I just think this is going to look a lot neater, especially as it sits on the ornament. And then I'm going to add glue to the top part of the ornament and glue the bow down. So I'm going to press that in the center and I also pull the smaller ribbon section that we added before down so it meets a bit lower. I'm also going to fold the tail ends of the ribbon so that I can cut the ends. I just think this looks a lot nicer. And then I'm also going to glue those ends together as well. I really had to think about how it was going to look from all those different sides, and I will trim off anything that doesn't look good. I then took out these little hair clips, snowflake hair clips that I had in my stash. I pulled them off the backing, the clip backing, and then I'm using some Gorilla Super Glue Gel to glue one of each of these on each side. I just love how this looks at the center of the bow on each side. And then I decided that I would add some of my little caviar beads, the little nail beads. I'm going to be attaching them with my Aileens tacky glue. I'm applying a little bit of glue, a little bit of at a time with a paintbrush, and then I'm sprinkling some silver caviar nail beads over the top. This is of course an optional step. I thought these looked really cute. It added another nice little 3D element to the project. So I'm just going to sprinkle that just randomly, not too many, but in the background areas. For the other side with Santa, I decided to use some gold caviar beads. This can be quite a messy step, so make sure you're doing this over the top of a paper towel or something so that you can scoop or pour those bits of beads back into their container. And here's a look at our finished Christmas ornament on a stand. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It was definitely fun to try something different with Christmas ornaments. I'm loving the ornament on a stand. I can see this on a dining table, and you can just switch it up, turn it around, and you've got a different design to work with. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find a full product list and my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks for watching.